Welcome to the Everyday Insights podcast. Today's guest is my friend Rhoda Yap, an international woman of mystery who's been an elite strategy consultant, retail maven, and now career director at INSEAD, one of the most prestigious business schools in the world. She guides her life by focusing on where she can provide the most value. And in this difficult career transition time for many, where better to be than leading a team of career counselors from France to Abu Dhabi to Singapore. So let's dive right in and hear her perspective on how technology is changing the job market. All right, well, welcome, Rhoda. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see you. It's been, a lot of years since we were both in grad school together. Catch me up on what's been going on in your life.
Well, hi, Anne. So you say a few years is actually 15 years.
Yeah.
It's a long shot away from wintry Ithaca.
Yeah, you're in Singapore now, you said?
Yes, I'm in Singapore now. The weather outside is 31 Celsius. I have lost my ability to communicate in Fahrenheit since leaving the US. So just look it up. I still remember in the short term, I want to work for a big consulting firm. In the long term, I want to go back and advise small, medium enterprises in my home state of Sarawak, which is in Malaysia. I did all of that. And then I was like, okay, been there, done that, then what, right? I always kind of was open to exploring how far the management consulting route would go. But I think after a while, reflection is important. And I thought, this is going to be quite predictable. Maybe I'm curious to see what else is out there. Right? And I think the pull of the family was a large thing. As someone who comes from a strong kind of family community, being 4 flights away from home was challenging for me. And I said, okay, it's time to go back.
Yeah, that's crazy. Tell me more about your family situation.
When I talk about my family, it's more about my father and my brother. I lost my mom when I was 16 to cancer. So we've been always quite a small family. And I think I would say when we are a small family, our ties are very close. So just being that far away was something which, you just kind of like, I only get to see them once a year. And that didn't feel enough.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, it's definitely important to all of us, right? It's tough to go halfway around the world and be that far away from your home base. And I'm sure you had friends and people you grew up with there, or a community of some kind, right?
I think one of the things that's quite interesting, if you say of the top 10 of the class, I can only think of 2 that is currently back in my home state. The rest of us are dispersed. And I think it's a natural flow of talent towards opportunities and where we can make impact. There's always talk about, we are suffering a brain drain, and people want to fix the brain drain. But I think trying to articulate it as a brain drain problem is probably not the right framing. Ultimately, it's about opportunities. I mean, why do people do graduate school in other countries? Because they have the aspiration for a global career, right? And to learn. And that is the economic opportunities that are drawing people, right? And some cultural opportunities too. So to fight that is hard because you have to replicate a whole economy or a whole city with those opportunities.
Yeah, the modern tools of the internet and communication and, Microsoft Teams or the video conferencing kind of thing like we're doing now has brought everybody closer together. There's still lots of time zone challenges I find working with people. But do you think the opportunities are still going to be localized in the near future and 5 or 10 years out? Are they still going to be related to these big cities, or is it going to matter less where you are?
It will depend on the type of work that people do, because all of us had the pandemic as an experiment, right? Having gone through both, the in-person experience has a lot of superior qualities. Because when you think about how people learn, how people grow, of course you can learn through online interactions. But when you think back on grad school, like we learn from sitting with each other at the lunch table, having coffee, hanging out. We talk to each other and we may learn from each other down the hallway in front of the lockers, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are things that you cannot replicate online.
Yeah, we spent our full day being immersed in it, right?
Yes.
From, waking up and going to school and eating lunch and then going to some recruiting event afterwards and then dinner and going out to bars or meetup events or dances or whatever. It was just constant. And there was definitely value there of immersing yourself with those people for 2 years.
And you think about the bonds that are formed through that. So you put that into an organization, right? So then what is the type of culture that you want in that organization? If your organization is one where teamwork and trust is very key, you need to invest in that in-person interaction time to basically build that trust. So for example, right now I have teams in 3 locations, right? So I have a team in France, I have a team in Singapore, and I have a team in Abu Dhabi. And if I don't go and kind of connect with them, and all they see me is through the video and my emails and my messages, it can be taken out of context because they don't know where I'm coming from as a person. Right? So I do think that the in-person element is very key to having a very high-functioning global team.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially with, I can't imagine with those 3 locations. It's not like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Portland, or it's very far apart, very difficult to get. A lot of your team members probably have never traveled to their locations or don't see each other, or I don't know. There's some expensive barriers there. I don't know how you do that very well, of keeping them as one cohesive unit.
So first, it's like having that awareness that there are going to be cultural differences, and these cultural differences span a lot of things from what is your baseline culture. So
I didn't even include that, right? I was just thinking distance and that. You're right. The 3 cultures are entirely different as well. Yeah.
I have 16 nationalities on my team.
Wow.
And when I joined, I thought, I've worked in the US, I've studied in the UK, I'm going to be fine, right? That was kind of overconfidence. So then I learned about a concept called low context cultures versus high context cultures. So low context cultures are very kind of explicit in their communication, which is like American culture. And American culture is low context and explicit because it's a land full of immigrants, right? And to make ourselves understood, we really have to spell it out. But when you're in a more homogeneous culture like the French, there's higher context. So what they say, there are a few layers under of what it truly means. So then learning to read what something actually means is actually very fascinating. Right?
Wow.
And just bringing the team to say, okay, it's not that I don't trust you. I'm just writing all this out so that, because if you write it out and they'll be like, oh, you don't trust me, or you think that I didn't get it. It's like, no. It's for all of us from different cultures to make sure that we are aligned. Wow. So here's the list, right? So there was this kind of anecdote to say when you do meeting recaps, if you don't kind of qualify that for under certain cultures, it may be read as my manager doesn't think highly of me. They have to recap everything. So you have those type of elements, or even like how people respond to emails. So for example, when I ask for the task to be done across both the Europe and the Asia team, the Asia team would quickly send back a note saying, I'm on it, And the Europe team they'll be like silence a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And then like on the third day, the whole product comes
Yeah,
in one
right.
piece, right? So in the beginning, I was like, is someone on it?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you know?
But then like, 3-4 days onwards, like the whole thing just comes at one shot, right? and just like realizing that and being able to say, how fascinating is that? And I've just mentioned a few of those, what is very kind of top of mind.
Yeah, sure.
But there are a whole host of these type of ways which we operate that are different. And it's important that we acknowledge that, but also celebrate it, because this is the population of students that we work with, around 17 nationalities. So if we learn how to work with 16, it will put us in a good position to work with 17, right?
Yeah, and teach them to do it too. It sounds like you've had to figure some things out, or you develop this kind of knowledge of how to do that working across cultures, and that's what the school is then trying to teach.
Yeah.
Very cool. One thing I saw you mention was people management, and how you've learned some different skills like that you learned later in your career here, that was kind of the most important part of learning how to treat people differently, or learning how to manage their particular style. I thought maybe we could have a conversation around that, about what you learned, and then some insights I've had from that in the past that I want you to poke at.
Yeah. Okay. When you're younger and now coming up with a freshly minted MBA, you think like, okay, data and information rules, right? It's like, if I show people the information, they should be convinced. And you come to think about, in order to be fair, you must treat everyone equally, right? Then I was reading one random piece about parenting, right? I don't have any kids, but it came through my feed. And one of the things that was fascinating was, if you treat your kids equally, you're doing them a disservice. Because they need different things, right? And with that, if you think about the people that are on our teams, they come from different places, and they have different communication styles and communication preferences. So this was something that I learned later, that we need to figure out how they communicate, of what's going to be the most effective or easy for them to respond to, and for them to thrive, compared to saying like, okay, this is my style. Everyone has to adapt to me.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a compromise on both sides, right? So like, say I have 6 people reporting to me now, and if you talk about our one-on-one catch-up, the way it is structured, all 6 are quite different. Because it's also not just about how they communicate or where they're coming from, but it's also the combination of their interaction with me, right? So all 6 will be different. And I cannot imagine that communication flow to be identical between anyone else, because you have 2 individuals, you bring them together, it becomes a third type of platform.
Yeah.
When I was in the US, I found American management styles as very, very organized and efficient. But when you take it out of a more homogeneous concept, not everything can fit in perfectly. So that's required that adjustment to say, be organic, look at the lay of the land, and then adapt your tools to it, rather than coming with the tools of like, how am I going to apply these tools, right?
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting to contrast the way you're trying to deal with the many different cultures and make almost more homogenized approach there to make sure everybody's on the same page, versus this like on the individual level needing to have a variety of tactics or a variety of ways you treat everybody.
Yes.
Just going towards the insane complexity of trying to be good at any of this.
There was this analogy that I read once. It's like we're talking about shepherding or herding flocks of animals, right? I say that if you want to effectively herd a flock of sheep, for example, you need to know the personality of each and every one of the animals, but you need to move them as a group. So when you think about that, you're like, wow, this is actually quite profound, because sometimes we think, oh, we set policies and everyone should follow kind of thing, or we set guidelines, but without actually looking at who is in that group that we are trying to lead or guide, right?
Do you remember back in school? I remember one time we did a Myers-Briggs assessment, and we split everybody up around the room and then talked about the differences between the groups. Did you ever do a task like that? I almost feel like you did it and we were in the same group maybe. But
Yeah, it feels so long ago, but yes, I remember something vaguely like that.
Well, it's related to this idea, because I feel like I have some issues with Myers-Briggs, and with all of those, I've been taught those same kind of concepts a few times in different places in my job at Intel, before grad school as well, and in grad school, whatever. It keeps coming up as a topic. And I think what it's really trying to teach you is a little bit of what you were saying. There are different kinds of people out there. They have different motivations. They have different ways they like to be influenced or talked to. Some people will absorb the data, and that's what you need to give them. Give them the spreadsheet. Yeah. Some people, they don't care about that at all. It's about other sources of influence. So I think, we did that exercise in grad school to try to get us to a bit of that idea, but it takes a long time for it to soak in, of course. And I've had trouble applying that in the actual business world, or the other times we've tried to do it with other frameworks. We've learned something and then tried to think about a particular stakeholder that you wanted to influence. You wanted to, for my job or something, you wanted to make a new research report and bring it to them and have them take action on your research. And you'd think about them and what kind of person you think they are and what type of method you should use to talk to them. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to do this with every presentation, every interaction I talk to. It seems overblown or like too much work for just what should be a natural human interaction, or this should just be happening. If things are working well, I should just feel it. I don't know. Have you ever run into that problem? Do you just feel it, or is it something you have to actively do?
I'm like smiling because I feel like a lot of management education when you're younger, they give you it's like a to-do. You feel like it's almost like a recipe. If you do this, this will happen, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, if you draw the analogy of recipe from a recipe book, from say California, you're not going to be able to find the ingredients outside of the US, right? So how are you going to adapt? And in reality is you're going to try and make that dish. It's not going to be that good, and you start adapting. So I think sometimes when people think about the learning journey, is that kind of learning from errors is actually a very core component, right? So when you talk about influencing people, of course, you do whatever you can to kind of anticipate, okay, is there going to be resistance? So if there's resistance, you have to go deductive style by presenting the information first. If there's not going to be resistance, you're going to go inductive style by giving the summary up front, right? And but after that, the real learning comes when you are in the room with the person and you start having that conversation, right? And your ability to adapt. So, it's not going well, you better be able to backpedal fast and then refine a different route. But if you hold on to that kind of script, it's going to be challenging, right? Or when you see resistance, I always think that people rarely want to just dig in their heels for just sheer sake of resisting. It's finding why are they resisting, right? What is the concern? So usually I would just not push whatever agenda that I'm there and just say, just stop, because you're not going to go forward, and just say, tell me what you're seeing, that I am not seeing, and put myself in that learning mode and being genuinely willing to listen, right? And being willing genuinely to change course is one of the things that you begin to have to be able to have that dialogue, as opposed to saying like, my way is the right way.
Do you have any good examples of any of these things or any good stories?
Yeah, I'm thinking like when I was a consultant, I had a key client, and this client was quite known for being very challenging to manage. And he insisted to say, for example, he wanted to see the Excel model, which as consultants, our Excel model, when we build it, it's not very pretty because we build it and then after that we have to clean it up before we actually share it as a deliverable. So how comfortable are we to show the client the sausage making?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, the team was resisting. It's like, are you mad, Rhoda? He's already so difficult, and you want to show him like all our kind of sausage making? He's going to be horrified.
That'll really
right?
tear it apart. Yeah.
But then I asked the client, why do you want to see it? And I saw that he had a bad experience from a prior consulting environment, that he was blindsided, right? So then I told him, I said, I will share, but just to share with you, this is part of the sausage making. But if you see anything that doesn't make sense, let me know. So I spent a lot of show the sausage making. It was like once a week for over a few months. But because of that, the trust was there. And eventually the ability to execute was there because that compromise. And of course, we did like take the client inputs and make the amendments where necessary. But had we say dug in the heels, say like, oh, we don't show the models because that's not good practice, that would not have enabled us to move forward.
Yeah, you'd probably lose that client and not get the next set of business or one or the other, right?
No, we would still get the business. It's just that this client would not have executed the
the recommendations or actually done the thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting as another form of consulting success or something, right? Yeah, maybe we should go back to that big topic in general or ask some questions around that. But when you're a consultant, you don't get to actually do any of the stuff, right? You're giving recommendations, you're doing analysis, and then you move on to the next project and someone else actually kind of does the things. And either you can get a lot of joy out of that because you get to work on so many variety of things, or people I've heard can get, sad and that they have these good ideas and it doesn't get implemented. So how did you during that time, think of yourself, like what did success look like for you then as a consultant? Is it that someone implemented the thing or that you got a delivery done, or how did you feel about it?
So one of my favorite projects, which was also my last project, was like a 6-month project. And within the team, we all had kind of marked certain clients of each. There's like 4 of us in the core team. So it was me as the manager and 2 associates and 1 analyst. And we would mark the clients to say like, okay, it's a change management thing. By the end of this project, where would we want to see the client move? So we were all like having a little friendly bet to say, can we move the client's mindset? Right? So we saw it from a relationship standpoint. And towards the end, we were not doing the heavy lifting and pushing already because they had taken it and owned it, right? I think one of the largest compliment that I got from one of the client members, I saw it one day, he started doing this in one of the meetings. And I said, what is this? It's like, you're doing Jedi mind tricks on us. It's like, you're getting us to do things that we don't want to do, but we think it's our idea and we end up doing it.
Wow, impressive.
So then I was like, hey, I was like, my skin in the game is not as much as your skin in the game, right? So the fact that they are taking it and making it their own was, to me, that was success. And I think that as a consultant, the ego needs to be put aside because you are there for the client. Yeah, you cannot say it was my idea. You cannot ascribe the ownership of the ideas. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. That's how I see it. So I'm not so anchored to the ideas or plans that are put forward, right? And most of the time, I would say inspiration comes from everywhere. And even now, day to day, like say when you're a manager, in some ways, there are certain elements which are similar to a consultant, especially when you're a manager of managers. You can't really be hands-on to execute, because if you are doing it, you're micromanaging. So you are a few levels away in getting the people to meet any kind of results or deliverables that you are looking at. Right? So I don't see a very large disconnect unless you are actually the individual contributor building the thing and then going on the ground to kind of make it happen. But if you become a manager or a manager of manager, you will lose that kind of immediate level of control, and you need to be okay with that, so
one of my first guests had an insight about setting your goals for success based on the actions of others, and this is an example of it that I'm interested to hear your perspective on there, because when you set your goal as the client will take action on this, then it's really out of your control, right? You can influence it, but it could fail just because of something else that happens in that company. Or we see that all the time in my research job and stuff, that you do a great research project, but then the business just stops, or the company totally changes direction, sells off that unit, something, and all the great work you did is just worthless. Right? Has that ever burned you, or do you still see that as like the necessary goal?
I think one of the things before like a big venture is embarked upon, the alignment is key. So I guess whether it's be as consultants or business leaders, just selling the idea up front of what the overarching goal is first before diving into the initiatives, and just also being, sometimes it's hard to be objective when it's your pet project, right? But when you take a step back and say like, how much would this move the needle, right? And then also, because I come from it from a very logical perspective, what is the expected payoff? There's a lot of this kind of cognitive biases. You're always going to think that your project is the one that's the best, as opposed to any other competing projects that any other teams may be doing, right? That's why you need to trust your manager or your leader to be able to have that objectivity to say, this person is seeing 4 different competing projects for resources. How are they going to allocate it, right? And it's their judgment call. And sometimes you feel like, oh, I didn't get the budget. I feel sad. And how I see it is like, okay, if it's just a matter of not having enough resources, I'll just get in the queue. I'll come back next year, right? So just keep on going. But I think like not taking it too hard and just trying to see where the decision maker is coming from is actually a very helpful tool, because it also enables us to say, what does that other project or competing competitor has that I don't, right? And you'll be able to take it and refine whatever initiative that you're working on. That's how I see it.
Interesting. Well, I feel like we should step back a moment and talk about something more fun. This has been a lot of business talk, So what else is going on in your life? You got any, I saw you were traveling a ton lately. What do you love about that? I see you go, do a lot of fun eating, or what's the benefits of traveling all around the world?
So let me just say, like when I was in the pandemic times, I was with another institution and my role at that point in time was Chief Operating Officer. So the Chief Operating Officer during the pandemic time the role is actually quite large, right? And I recall at that point in time, it was like a good 18 months just operating primarily from my apartment. Just like, you know?
Yeah, I know that is, yeah.
And then after that, when I moved to my current role, and immediately like my team is dispersed across 3 continents, right? And then the movement was like from 0 to 100. I didn't really have time to think, I just said like, how fascinating. You don't know how your life would change from 1 month to the next or 1 year to the next. So how I see it is like, just make the most of it and experience all these different cultures. So like when I'm in France, if the weather is good, I'll go to Paris and just walk. And what I've been doing is just focus on, because we are not really a tourist, I just say I have this crazy checklist that I have to go see this, do that. But I just say, I'm going to focus on this neighborhood and just start walking. And if I like it, the next round I'll come back to it. So I'm building like knowledge of certain neighborhoods that I enjoy. And it's pleasant, right? And Paris is such a walkable city. There's so much to discover. And of course, the food there is glorious, right? So,
yeah.
I learned a term the last time I was in Paris, because I was just walking around with no agenda, which is very liberating for people who describe me as quite alpha and not have a plan and just like wander around. So there is this concept that the Parisians call flaneur. It's spelled as FLANEUR. So this whole concept of just strolling around. And it's actually, I recognize during those moments is when I get very inspired with ideas to kind of see different ways of certain issues that I'm facing at work, right? Because your mind is just released, and you're experiencing new things. So I enjoy that. And then so every time I go to a new city, so in 2 weeks' time, I'll be in Milan. So I'll think, okay, I'm just going to walk around Milan now and see how it goes. Right?
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
And the end of June, I'll be in Washington, D.C. I've been to Washington, D.C., but I figured I would just go check out the museums again, because there's always things to do. So can't say that I'm bored,
Yeah, that's great.
I take it as part of my unofficial professional development.
What's going on in Milan, or what do you have to do? Like, how much of the time you have to be working there versus it is this kind of exploration?
I mean, usually I'll have like maybe one afternoon of exploration, and like I try and spend like the weekend there, so that it'll have a bit more kind of gap of things to kind of explore.
Yeah. Back in the day when we used to travel for market research stuff, our old boss David Ginsburg would always, there was this perspective that you should spend extra days and go like immerse yourself in the local culture and do some of this kind of stuff. But then as time goes on, the business always, pushes on that, right? Or you're going to be there for 3 days, or you're going to be there for a week for the research. It's like, you really got to get back. You got to get back and do some work in the office, right? You can't spend another week there.
But the other fun part about that was last year. I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, so I got there a day earlier, and I just said I want to see the real desert.
Oh, wicked!
So that they have a lot of this kind of tourist package, but it was so fun. I mean, even though it was a tour package, it was only me and another honeymooning couple, which then we had like breakfast in the Bedouin tent. But I was so gobsmacked. There was like a portable air cooler in the tent, and I was like, this is a luxurious desert experience.
It's like, this is not the real Bedouin style, is it?
And then we got on the camel, and then the tour guide said, "How long do you want to be on the camel?" And then we asked, "How long do you think we should be on the camel?" He says, "I don't think you guys will last 10 minutes." So he said, "I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll take you on the camel. We go to a place, we take lots of pictures, And until you're sick of it, you can continue, or you may be so hot that you want to come back.
Wow. Did they dress you up in like good desert garb so that you weren't too hot, or how did that go?
Oh no, we wore our own clothes,
Yeah.
but they covered our hair and face. I mean, so that's, that's just a lot of sand.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of sand.
Wow.
Oh, and then we went on the buggy, the kind of the car that try and drive through the dunes.
Okay.
And you have like sand everywhere after that because like the velocity of the movement is like kicking up all the sand. So that was fun.
Were you wearing like ski goggles, that kind of thing, or is it more
no,
traditional?
We were just being
just sand everywhere.
All the sand.
That's neat.
Yeah, that was fun. So you have, I think, like having a very varied type of opportunities. And later this year, schedule permitting, I have also something scheduled for China. So it is really like seeing the world, which is a big perk of my current role, I say.
Yeah, you got to enjoy and take advantage of that when you can. Life doesn't always permit it for health reasons, family reasons, or just the jobs or economic reasons. There's many reasons that get in the way of having that kind of lifestyle. So that's great. You can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you some more about hobbies or things you might do. And then I remembered probably zero because you just started doing a PhD. That's your hobby.
That's my hobby. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Really, really enjoying it.
What made you think this was the right path to go down, and what are you hoping to get out of it?
So I actually, about a few years ago, I felt I was plateauing intellectually. And the work that I was doing was challenging, but it was people challenging, right? But in terms of the knowledge, I felt that I still had something in me that I could still do one final push as we go into the final phase of our career, right? So I intend to work until I'm like 70, if not 80. So I was like, hey, what do I need to continue that route?
Okay.
And so the PhD was something that beckoned. As I started doing it, and I begin to realize, like when people talk about generative AI, this is still one area that generative AI cannot touch because it is about the creation of new knowledge through running experiments, for example. Right? And then the joining of the connections, the interdisciplinary connections, is also something that I cannot see the current state of AI doing, right? Maybe one day, but for now, if you need to create new knowledge and you need to prove it, a way to prove it is through experiments in a way that is ethical. That is only what humans can do. So that's an area that I feel will continue to have. Then we will continue to add value.
Us meat bags. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you thought the PhD might help fight back against that a little bit. I have thought about this recently too, that not the AI part, of course, many thoughts on that, but the PhD idea of a couple of years back, I was thinking of AI safety as a field I really enjoy and something that you're like, maybe that would be the route to go. And I don't even know how to go towards it sometimes, or like starting at this point in our career, I think it's a brave thing to do. So how did you choose a topic, and how's the application process, or because you're already in the education world, was that a lot easier for you, or how did it go?
So I think like where I'm at in Singapore, there is a couple of good PhD for working professionals programs. So I mean, you have the typical DBA, but what I'm doing is an actual PhD in general management. The first year, we actually go through all the general management topics. So think about the core subjects that we saw during an MBA, but taken from a theoretical perspective, and we see all the showcase of where the current knowledge is at, okay, where the cutting edge research is at. So across all the different disciplines, like for example, marketing, OB, organizational behavior, finance, and so on and so forth. Right. So from there, you can see where the current research ends, and you can see how potentially there's more work to be done, and that's how you can select and build what interests you. What I learned in the last 6 months since I've been on this journey, I used to think that, oh, let me go research this, right? Like this white sheet type of world. It's actually not that white sheet, because you don't want to research stuff that's already been done or disproved, right? And the whole kind of academia sphere, it is very structured, that you can actually follow the chain of how the research is going and pick it up and continue it, and then, build that kind of forward path for it. So where we, as more kind of seasoned professionals, where we add value is that compared to the 20-somethings who are going into it in anticipation for a career in academia, just a couple of my professors has highlighted that profiles like us doing it, we are able to spot the topics that have both theoretical and practical implications very quickly, that intersection, because we have that knowledge, right, that experience. So that was very encouraging. So I've been really, it is challenging, I have to say. But I tell myself I signed up for it. So it's a hobby. Go do it.
Yeah. What's sometimes PhDs take 4 or 5 years or so, or what's the outlook for yours? And you work that whole time in your current job or your regular kind of job, and then do that.
So it's currently it's also between 4 to 5 years. So I'm on that journey.
Yeah, awesome.
Year 1.
My mom would always say, or for many times, the time just goes by, right? You get started on that, and 4 years from now, 5 years from now, you'll have a PhD. So if you don't get started, it won't happen.
But the other one thing, like being in that classroom setting where we have our PhD seminar, I really, really treasure it, because when I'm sitting in there, it's like, I don't know when the next time I cannot see the opportunity to be able to learn in this structured setting at that high level of impact, right? Because I did some executive education courses before as well. But if you compare the rigor of what we did during MBA versus the executive education courses, it's the executive education courses is a little less kind of on the workload piece. It's not as much. So if you don't have to do as much of that kind of assignment work, the learning is a little different, right? You don't get to go into it as deeply. So now when in a PhD setting, we have to go through the research papers quite rigorously and be able to present it and defend it, and then suggest ways for further research. So the depth of the learning is very satisfying for me. And I'm just saying, okay, cherish it. And sometimes as sleep deprived and as painful as it is, like taking final exams for statistics or finance, it's just like, it's okay. This, you don't know, this may be the last time, so really cherish it.
You won't always get to take exams.
But the relief after the exam, that's a great feeling, right? But the before the exam, the kind of like the T minus 2 hours, you try to see what else have I missed? That doesn't feel good.
How would you compare the experience you had in maybe undergrad to MBA program to now PhD, or like you're getting the similar type of focus in on learning and time to sit in that class and mental space to say, this is what I should be doing. But tell me more about what feels different between them.
So
similar.
My first degree is law, and that wasn't really my choice. It was like a parent choice, as with most Asians. So to me, that experience was, yes, it was learning experience, but it was like my body and my mind was there in the class, but my heart wasn't. So it was just like going through the motions. It felt painful. I have to say that I actually thought about quitting, but as quickly as the thought came, the currency conversion rates and the sunk cost fallacy prevented me from quitting. So I finished. But the MBA was that of my choice. So when you have the the mind, the body, and the heart in place, the learning was phenomenal. And it was the MBA put labels onto knowledge that I had already had and gave a new set of vocabulary to kind of be able to troubleshoot, right? So when you see a problem, say, oh, that's an organizational behavior problem, or oh, that's a operations issue, right? Compared to before, you can just describe all the symptoms and you may not be using the right vocabulary, and as a result, you probably cannot solve it as quickly as is ideal.
Yeah, I think just applying the word, I think there's another piece to it that you're not saying, which is the learnings you got, the frameworks, the background. Like the name allows you to go to that source of knowledge. Oh, like I took 2 semesters of courses in that. What did I learn there, and how do I apply it?
Yeah. And then at Ph.D. time, I think like being privileged to do it with a few years more of experience, I began to say, this thing actually really bothers me. I want to find a solution for it because there's no solution for it right now. And to be able to kind of push that, then that is how it is different. For example, one of the things that I came across was the whole idea of zero-sum mindset, which is essentially summarized as one person's win must come at the expense of another person's loss, right? So this zero-sum mindset has a lot of negative consequences in terms of team dynamics to even community dynamics, and it's also often attributed to racism kind of sentiments. And there's so much literature on how zero-sum mindset affects people and how it's bad. But then I was trying to find, is there a way to mitigate it? And it's like, for every 100 pieces of how zero-sum thinking affects people and how it's bad, there's probably 2 or 3 articles saying how to mitigate it. So I'm like, this is where I could see one of the areas I could focus on, because I just feel like I don't want to be the scientist that keeps on saying, hey, look, there's this contagious virus without providing the cure or the vaccine, right? Yeah. So I want to be that type of researcher to focus on practical cures and vaccines from a management perspective, that we are able to contribute to the community, because businesses are such a large component of how we experience the world.
Sounds like there's a good book and lecture series and motivational speakership, all of the above, wound up in that as a topic to go forward with. I like it. Yeah. So is that, I was going to ask you for an example of what is some of the state-of-the-art research or something you've read or something that's interesting, but maybe that sounds like you jumped to it without me asking the question. The zero-sum game.
Yeah, I can give something which will be helpful, because one of the things that I read, and because the threat of recession is oncoming, so they say like when people read recession signals within teams, people are less likely to demonstrate helping behavior of their teammates. And that is actually not ideal, because you should be helping each other out more, right? But when usually what happens is when there's a recession, people think, oh, the bonus pool may be limited, therefore I want to excel. So if I want to excel, I should keep the opportunities to myself. But it's a suboptimal solution for the enterprise. So one of the areas that I was exploring to test out, because there's also some other research to say in different contexts, um, zero-sum thinking can be elevated if people have an abundance mindset or they feel they come from a position of strength. So just even in communications as managers or leaders, when we tell people to plan for recession, I think it's also going to be responsible for us to articulate, the strengths that we have as teams or as enterprises. So we go in with a more balanced mindset and not affecting any of these other more altruistic behaviors that people would otherwise be displaying.
Interesting. Yeah, I had a couple thoughts in there, but I'm not sure I'll grab onto them.
We can continue after this podcast.
Let's get back to the whole idea of success and how you've kind of planned out this career path in your life, chosen the PhD, got a great job you're working at now, have this career history in the past. Like, at what point did you think any of this was possible? How did you, like, what would, Rhoda, 16-year-old Rhoda or 23-year-old Rhoda think of what you're doing now?
One of my personal mantras is things don't turn out the way I plan, they turn out better. I feel like most of my life, I like planning, but I realized that in the course of planning and moving forward to the plan, new options open, and those options are often far better than what I imagined them to be. But it also requires me to keep an open mind and not be like steadfast to say, oh, I want this thing that I worked so hard for, but just like, hey, this is not too bad. Right? That's cute, that's interesting, and just be able to go with what the universe sends you, right? And move towards that. That is how I see it. At the Career Development Center, with the tight labor markets, of course, there are anxious students. So I recall one of the session with one of them, and they were anxious, and I asked them what triggered the anxiety, right? I said, looking at my classmates get the offers, and I say, and I know that this was someone who was interested in finance and was very logical. I say, is that an apples to apples comparison? And then they were like, no. Yeah, that was a bit laid back and the background's different. I said, yeah, so why are you comparing, right? And I think that most of the time when people think about success, they compare with other people. And I think that is not the right frame. It will only bring unhappiness because ultimately, even as an MBA graduate, you will understand, you compare financial statements. Those are balance sheets, are snapshots. Income statements are for a period of 1 year. But at any point in time, we as humans, right, we cannot say like, hey, we're going to take a 1 year time frame. We are from what we are from we born until we are today. So how do you define success other than what you compare yourself to yourself, right? So how I think about success is, given the skill sets and opportunities that I have, am I making the best of it? And if I feel like I am, and I say, okay, I'm done.
All right, I like that. So you think about the skills you have and whether you're taking advantage of them, and use that as your marker of, I'm being successful if I'm using my value. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm using my value to contribute to society, to the community. And then there was this one other thing, that there's always a part of me that wants to work less. So if you think about return on your skill sets, right? So your skill sets are the opportunities being the denominator. And I say, okay, just have to really pump it out in the numerator part, right? But as you are kind of like pumping up all the good impact and the things that you're contributing. In the process of you using your skill sets, your denominator also grows. That is like an endless type of cycle. So that frame, when you say I compete with myself, it's not a very laid back thing, because one day I realized, like, yikes, the skill sets have evolved. They are a lot more efficient than they were. I have to do more.
Yeah. I'm no longer good enough if I keep performing at this level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of something you said reminded me of your abundance mindset idea when you were talking about comparing, when you see a colleague or someone else having a lot of success and it makes you feel bad. It's related to that
zero-sum mindset.
Just because they got a job doesn't mean you won't, or that you're not a success, or that you're not fulfilling your dream. You both, hopefully everybody does better when someone individual does better.
Yeah. And I also think, like, there are resources around. I really admire some of the students who come to me and they will say, like, I'm kind of stuck right now. And I usually ask them, what do you want out of this session, right? And then when they formulate the questions, like, I want to know what I have been doing that I should not be doing and what I have not been doing that I should be doing. And then that's the best type of frame where I can help, because the willingness to learn is already there. And very rapidly, they begin to see, like, based on the gaps, they begin to accept why certain people has had success earlier. And I always say, like, whether or not you get a job today or 3 months out doesn't define success. Some people can really, really have a great profile, but it's just the timing of the market is not right. So you cannot measure your worth based on that. But as long as you try your best, that's it.
Yeah. Finding jobs is the worst. I personally, it's one of my least favorite things to do. Maybe that was one of my difficulties, both with leaving Intel and leaving a steady job and saying, I want to go off and do my own thing, was like, yeah, sure. In theory, mentally, I can imagine I have a valuable skill set, good background, should be easy to find some other job. But in practice, I find it very daunting, and it never quite works out as easily as I'd like it to.
What about it do you find daunting?
Maybe it's the rejection or the assigning some of that value to your personal worth. I think that's probably the deepest I could get into the psyche of it. But I don't know. What do you think? How would you analyze me?
I can see how, no one likes to get that ding letter, right? But when I see myself, like, going out, just when I was about to, so I did 2 years of kind of freelance work, self-employment work. And every time when I went out, whether or not be looking for an assignment or eventually looking for a role, I always went to see, like, how can I contribute? So when I talk to people, I would try and find out, like, what they were doing, and then begin to say, oh, can I see myself contributing to that? So when I pitch my kind of ideas, and they will either get it or they don't get it. And if they don't get it, I'm like, it's also okay, because I also don't want to be in a place where I'm not valued.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, thanks, right? So that's how I see it, and just, like, take it as, it's like, one meeting done or one interview done is one step closer to where I need to be, and just, like, the key thing is just moving forward. So that's how I see it. Yeah, it may be simplistic, but the last time when I looked for a role, this was back in 2017. I remember that epiphany when I was doing my freelance work, and I said, okay, I need to go back to a more structured environment. And the reason was, I was supposed to be writing an article that day, and I was having a writer's block. It was Monday morning, 11 a.m. That moment was still very, very clear in my mind. Monday morning, 11 a.m., writer's block. I was wearing an orange-colored Nike short. And I was sitting in my living room looking at my orange shorts and saying, you do not have all the gifts to be having a writer's block in your orange shorts at 11 a.m. on a Monday when everyone else is working, right? Then I took a deep breath. I said, okay, I think I should go back to start to employ. And then at that point in time, I didn't even know what I was going to do. And I was like, okay, what type of job do you want? I asked myself. It's like, I do not want to be stuck in traffic jam. That was the first thought. Okay, how shallow is
How
that?
close
Right?
can I be to where I work?
Yeah. So then, okay, putting that aside, okay, what next? And I was like, what can I contribute? So at that point in time, because I was in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and I thought about a lot of what I see in Malaysia, the things to do with corruption. And I said that organizational cancer starts at procurement, right? And I said, given that I've done procurement strategies while I was a consultant, this could be somewhere where I can contribute. So I went to the Malaysian Institute of Accountants and I said, I want to teach this to your members, will you sell this program to me? And they did. So the first time when they put it out, they marketed it, a grand number of 3 people signed up. Then I was like, oh, that's kind of like weird. It's like hard to do a class with 3 people. But I didn't give up because they were saying, it's something new. You need to give it a bit of time for people to pick it up. So the second time, there were 6 people signed up. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I need to start somewhere. They were surprised that I would do it for 6. And I said, I just want to make sure the 6 people have a very, very good experience.
Yeah.
So then I had the person that I was working with, I had this researcher say, can you just go and look up all these people and give me their company profile so that I can tailor the material to them? And together with that research came a job posting for the first career development director of the Asia School of Business. And I looked at that job role. It was never even something that I imagined that I would want to do. And I was like, my goodness, this is my dream job,
Wow.
Then I put the address of that school into Google Maps. And I thought it was an error because it says it's only 12 minutes away from where I was living.
You found your perfect match.
And having said that, so that was how I pivoted into higher education, right? Serendipitous. Yeah. And the person who attended the class eventually became part of my team too. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Of course, that is the classic story of that everyone has a little bit of the serendipity of where they are and the success they have. And also that the people that are in your life are often the people that happen to be around you, the people you ran into, the person who's in your class, then they become your employee or your friend or all those things. Yeah. Strangely, is how things come together.
Yeah.
So how does that lead into your kind of success for the future? You talked about how the path from the, has been better at every moment, and that it also wasn't where you expected it to go. Now you have this plan for the future with the Ph.D. and as well as your career going on the side, or like, what do you see as your goals for the next 5 or 10 years? Or do you not set goals that way? Or what's the importance of goals for you?
I know it's kind of ironic that I am a career development director, but I don't I don't have a very concrete goal other than to just work on what I got and move forward. My take is in any role, as long as I feel that I am still contributing and able to contribute, I will continue to be in it. And just I don't see myself as super kind of ambitious in terms of the conventional sense, because I measure it against myself. And having said that, my success is not just about my career, it's also about my well-being, right? The overall well-being of uh, where I'm where I'm at, you know. Do I have what I call calmness of heart, and just really being happy to be alive, that kind of feeling, right? And I also know, having gone through the different kind of peaks and throws of the career journey, and even when I was self-employed, I was also very happy, right? So I was like, it's not driven by material things, it's driven by uh, the kind of, a lot of is the people that are around you and your sense of purpose of how are you contributing. So if you feel like you're contributing, no matter how, you may think that it's small, but it may not be. It may be small to you as in person, but it may not be small to the people who are around you, receiving that help, or that support. So, so that's how I see it. I know it's not very like framed in a packaged, eloquent way in an interview, in a kind of a career interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And for me, it's like I see myself still
Yeah.
working. That's it.
No, that's great. I think you have a good perspective on how, you definitely have laid out some big goals for yourself, but they're not hard and fast goals, really. You just kind of take it day by day, keep grinding at it, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be some big, huge picture, big impact you want to have or something. It's just keep working, and challenge yourself.
I have the headline. The headline: be a good human being. That's it.
Yeah, that's nice enough.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we could talk. You touched a little bit there on people that have been important to you. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how do the relationships around you and the people in your life influence what choices you make, or that's some of that success that you found.
So the reason why I'm laughing, because I think like with age, I've been a lot more comfortable of who I am and what I feel comfortable with. And I like being around people. I can spend a lot of time alone. And this has been like listening to how my parents described me when I was a toddler or as a young child, like 3, 4 years old. They say like sometimes we don't know what's going on with you. It's just like total silence, and we go up and you are engrossed in the book. Just like very quiet, right? But on the other hand, as a person, I can interact with people. But if you give me a choice, I like spending a lot of alone time. So when I travel and I see all these places, I move around alone, and I'm very happy with that. But if I see people and people talk to me in the cafe, like the other day in Paris, I spent 2.5 hours talking to an Australian tourist. I'm also okay with that, right? So when you talk about the people around me that inspires me, it's always like, it's just going to be dependent on who comes across my path. There's no overarching kind of role model to say like this person shaped my thinking. And for even since I was in my 20s, I have already like been very, I lived alone. So I find it very hard to think about sharing my space with someone else, because I've been like this for as long as I remember.
Big change, yeah.
And just being okay with it. And I think perhaps like when I was in my 30s, there was a bit more kind of society pressure to say, when are you going to settle down and things like that. But now, as I move along and the people around me can see that I'm actually thriving in the way that I'm at, and they could see that if it was any other way, I would not have been as content or happy. And I just said, everyone has a different story and a different path, and my path is this phenomenal one
Yeah.
that I'm on so far, right?
Yeah, tell me more about how you choose that, or like I think it's a difficult topic for women, especially in this day and age. Is like this career. You told me once how there was just more career opportunities coming up all the time, more interesting things to do than in some sort of romance way or what.
Yeah. I remember because one of our this was like one of our classmates at business school. She was like asking me, "Hey, how come you're not going dating?" And And I said, like, look, it's like evaluating mergers and acquisitions. The sum of the parts together must be greater than the parts individually. And at that point in time, she like whacked me in the head with with a piece of paper, like saying, "This is why you'll be single." And I was like, but underlying it is, if you're going to be happier and more fulfilled, living a path on your own, just move down that path, right? And having said that, at that point in time, I didn't close the door. It's just that the opportunities that came at those point in time, what was more compelling was the path that I was on than saying finding, a life partner. And after a while, I think my father was also very supportive in that way. There was one day out of the blue, he told me, say, "Rhoda, the fact that you're not married doesn't lessen me in my eyes." And I was like, it was so random. I said, I didn't expect that, but thanks,
Is that a backwards compliment?
But I was like, it's kind of funny, but okay, I'll take it,
I think he meant well. Yes,
Yeah.
he meant well.
Yes. I know. Maybe he just wanted to get it off his chest, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's super interesting. Was it a difficult decision for you, or was it never a decision?
Yeah, I think like with any woman, you're always going to think, hey, it's my biological clock ticking and all of that. But again, like if you think about my framing, that say like, why are you comparing yourself with other people? Right?
Yeah, I guess how I wanted to frame it really maybe was it an either or? Did you really, could you have both?
No.
Or do you think to reach a certain level of success, you need to make choices about that? Or are they related? Like for me, the two topics of finding a mate and, finding a career or something, it's always been very intertwined or something, or like it's just core to who I am and the choices I make. And so it's really interesting to hear other people's perspectives on it because we're all different and we make decisions different ways. There's nothing wrong with either one of us or either, any way we make decisions. It's more like I like to understand people. And that's the goal of this, is to like understand those different perspectives and let people know how they could lead their lives or different successful ways that you could lead your life. So yeah, did it feel like this either or decision you have to make, or is it something different?
I think like when I was in my 30s, I think that was something that I actively did think about. Oh, should I be putting more effort in it? So I also did kind of I tell myself, okay, put in some effort and see how it goes, right? And at that point in time, because the effort was not yielding what I was expecting, that's why it wasn't as if something that I just sat back and didn't do anything. So I was proactive. And I was like, it's not worth my time.
Yeah. That's where your opportunity cost thing came in. Yeah.
And I think it's also seeing as well that a relationship for what it actually is, right? Because at the end of the day, these are options. They are not guaranteed outcomes, right? And seeing some of people who I knew that didn't have very good kind of outcomes to or what seemingly may be a good match on paper or on photos and so on and so forth, did not turn out to be, what they expected. And, you just think like, okay, it doesn't have, it takes a lot of work to make a marriage work. But there's also a lot of circumstances in which when it doesn't work, right? And when I thought about where I was like, to me, it wasn't even something that was close for me to consider. So I'm not going to pine away for something that is not an option for mine to exercise, right? So if I think about it as like, I have all these like career options, and then if marriage was one career option, I see it in that manner, right? Because it's how you live your life. But if you tell me now, say, Rhoda, if I had a career aspiration to be a computer programmer, for example, and this is something that is not within my realm of options right now, so I should not pine for it. And similarly, this is not something like, I go out and find someone the way I go and acquire knowledge, right? It requires a fair amount of kind of orchestration from the universe for you to meet that person, right? And have that right type of chemistry and have that shared aligned values to kind of make it work. And I also think that to begin with, I acknowledge that I have a very independent thought process, right? Even as a child and even as a teenager. So it's not that easy to kind of find that common fit, I feel. So, so this is where I'm at. And
yeah, it's great.
I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Yeah, you definitely have a neat looking life now. And I think you've... everyone I'm talking to and everyone I think in my network or people I meet, I think everyone's very successful. But, I like hearing all the different stories of our friends, our classmates in that way, that they've all gone off and done really interesting things and had this meandering, interesting career. So I definitely love hearing about it.
I have one other thought
Sure.
to add that may be helpful for, if there are like women in their 30s who are like worried about their biological clock ticking. Someone once told me this line, and that really kind of, drove a message back. He says, having a child is not a human right.
What does that mean to you?
And it means that, because not even everyone can have a child, even if they were in a marriage, right, for example. Yeah. Right? So it's along those kind of lines. So it's you may be destined to have one or not.
I see. It's not. Yeah, not even that it's a right bestowed on you by someone else, but it's not your personal right. Like it might just not be for you. It might not be allowed to by the universe, almost.
But having said that, I just want to say I really admire, women who have kids. And every time I have people going on maternity leave in my team, I'm very, very happy. And I was like, okay, you're taking one for the team, more humans for the world.
Hopefully continue the current form of life we have. One thing I could say about the kids idea or the family stuff is that, I've had both sections of my life now, right? A time working hard as an individual, a time with a wife, and then now a time with a kid. And I'm choosing, this is how I'm started to try to think about it for myself, is like I'm choosing now to really invest in my family and to, spend a lot of my time and energy with my son and with the family to, enrich his life and be a good dad, try to be the best I can be that way. And it's definitely taking away from the other activities. Like I used to spend tons of time doing coding stuff or doing different things. Like when you're 25 or you're 30 or something, you don't have these responsibilities. That's the big word for it, right? You have all this free time that you just spend on other things. You can get other things done. And so now that, when I wake up, I take care of the kid for a while, get him off to school. By the time I get to work, then I maybe go for a run in the morning. Like I might not get to work until it's almost noon or 11 a.m. or something, right? And That's tough. My whole workday is shortened down a ton, and then at night there's a big chunk taken out, and then maybe I get some work in after everybody's asleep, but I'm pretty darn tired by that time, especially as like my biological clock has ticked onwards, and I'm not able to crush it until 2 a.m. in the morning working hard anymore. So I don't know. So that's one way I look at it, is just like it's a choice I've made. Right. A choice that I've said, I'm going to invest my time into this. It's going to take away from the career things I can do or the other things I can accomplish, but it's a different form of my success or something. Yeah.
I think that, sometimes people measure what is tangible and they miss the intangible, which is like the things that you're talking about, time with your son, nurturing him and watching him grow. That's also going to be temporary, right? So before you know it, he'll be off to college.
Yeah, that's what everyone says, right? So I'm trying to soak it in, absorb it, spend as much time as I can to enjoy that.
I have very fond memories of my father taking me to and fro school because my mom couldn't wake up in the morning. Like, why did I get to that? A great knowledge of 60s, 70s music repertoire. But you see, these are all very fond memories, right? And like now that when my father's older, he will be turning 80 next year. I was like, you look a lot, like you look on your dad with my dad with a lot of fondness and just like that gratitude of how much time he spent with me and nurtured like my independence of thought, right? He was also like, just do what you want to do, don't hurt anyone.
That's the good values he was instilling in you, I guess, there from the beginning. Just don't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we finish up on our one hot topic question of the day, which I mentioned to you earlier. And that is to think about, AI and the large language models that are super hot these days. They're increasing capabilities at this alarming and incredible rate. And for the people who aren't digging deep on it, the different tools that people are creating with these things just run the gamut of knowledge worker kind of jobs. And it's maybe one of the first times in our history that knowledge work is the main thing under threat. We had the Industrial Revolution or these different things that, factory work or agriculture work was a big one, right? That lots of people came out of the fields and were replaced by a machine, and people worried that, what are the people going to do? But it turns out they found other jobs. And some people think that's what'll happen now as the AI comes in and replaces lots of knowledge worker jobs. They think, they'll just go off and find more interesting jobs. But I worry that I'm not sure those really exist, right? If it's not knowledge work and it's not industrial work, what is the other work? That's the question. I don't know. So as you see these things coming in, what do you think the perspective is going to be for, your industry, helping people find jobs and the career market? What's the impact going to be?
So just like from my perspective, just from the careers part. So I recall years ago, you still have people who had professions like resume writers, right? And like even back in 2018, when we were working with, when I was having to check all the students' resumes, and after the fourth subpar resume, I was on the fifth one. I was already so demotivated. And then at that point in time, I discovered a machine learning tool that they can just have the students feed it into them and have the AI kind of help them prompt it to correct. And I loved that. It was like, then what I could talk to the students about was the actual stories that they wanted to put in, right? So prompting the stories.
Not is it clear or well written,
out.
But what's a good thing?
No, it's like, how's your formatting like? How does your bullet? It's like, no, I don't want any of that. Yeah. So, but now when I see of what some of the generative AI tools can do, a lot of it, the thematic part is about, can you ask the right questions and use it in the right way to enhance what you're doing? So if you have a job role and you have your resume, and say, okay, what is the gaps in my resume, right? So of course, some people worried about people faking the thing, right? And ultimately, currently the technology is not to the certain level that you have to think about this generative AI piece as not as a standalone, but as part of an ecosystem of processes, right? So while they can whoever decides to try and pad their resume, do so at your own peril, because your synthetic experiences can be sussed out quite easily in an interview. When you start asking for details, tell me about that time where you actually did this, and then you cannot create it unless you're a phenomenal method actor that you have prepared for your interview the way you prepare for a movie role. Then perhaps you may get past. But other than that, those type of it can be quite easily figured out where the gaps are. So how I see the careers advisory piece morphing is, as opposed to, oh, let me help you refine your bullets, to be, did you know you have these type of cognitive biases right now as you're doing decision making for careers, and having the career advisor highlight these kind of limitations of the human mind, right? Whereas the more kind of mechanical things like writing, all of that can be also outsourced. And I can see like everyone needs to use it, because it's kind of like, if everyone is using a calculator and you're not using a calculator, you are at a disadvantage. So all the top business schools are including it into their resume and cover letter process, right? That you will be able to see enhanced writing. So anyone who comes up with a typo or grammatical error, that will be like it will stick out like a sore thumb, right? But your stories are your own, and that will still differentiate.
Yeah.
And I can tell something when it's generated by an AI piece is too vanilla, right?
So in grad school, I was a TA for a number of courses we had, and graded a lot of papers through that. And we had a pretty international student body. The one thing I could say about the papers overall is I was like appalled by how poor the writing was, or like you would get a B if I could read it almost, if it made sense reading it and it kind of answered the question, like, yeah, you're up to B. And I'm, saying
it would be so nice if you don't have to correct that, you get to go straight to the crux.
Yeah.
Of it,
or
right?
I also just wondered how that generative AI stuff will help all those students who struggled with the language part. Maybe they can just type in the interesting bits. Yeah. Like you're saying, the story that they're trying to get across, and have that writing assistant that gets them through. So like it might get a lot harder to get a good grade in school because you actually have to do better. You're like in that same scenario, right? Like just doing something that is an English story with a start, a middle, and an end won't get you a B. Like that, everybody will have that because they wrote it with an LLM or other AI model.
But just like building on what you're saying, it's basically the part, like, how do you convince someone? It's just not really through writing. You need to have that verbal communication. So this is where you start to separate, like, even if you write beautifully, and even if the AI can generate for you a beautiful presentation deck, if you cannot speak eloquently to sell, or have that storytelling ability to sell your idea, you're not going to get through. So then I would feel like the shift will be back to more kind of in-person type of communication. So maybe people can say, yeah, I can create myself an avatar, but still, how that storytelling, what is powerful storytelling, right? It comes from personal experiences, being to kind of read your audience. So I still think there is some room for the human role, right? Inspiration, all of that. I wouldn't dismiss it to say like generative AI may not be able to get there, but I don't know what the limits are. But I will just keep my eyes peeled. And I think it's also important for people to be more generalist, or have a broader kind of education mindset, which is why I think that the American college system is actually an excellent system, because it's like very broad as opposed to more focused. I do feel like more specialized type of education may put the person at a disadvantage, because that can be easily replicated by a machine learning tool, as opposed to something which requires like cross-functional discipline.
Yeah, that's some deep level complexity that is tough to figure out what's going to be really needed. One other thing I thought about on the AI front that you might have a good perspective on is translation, or this kind of, you do a lot of work across both cultures, countries. I don't know how many different languages, in your team of 16 or 17 countries you said, or, how many different languages there's really trying to speak, or you speak in the job. But as the translation, transcription tools get really good and cheap and for, like really ubiquitous to use nowadays, what do you think are the big barriers there that are left to make language just not matter? That, people speak whatever they want. People speak whatever they want, and you hear whatever you want, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's the Star Trek universal translator, right? That is the final frontier. So sometimes I get messages in French, right? So I don't speak French. I can read the menu in French. That's about it for now. But the beauty of like the email software nowadays, there's a button that says translate to English. The other day, someone said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. What do I need to fill in this form?" I said, "Oh, it's just this. And they said, "How did you know you speak French?" I said, "No, I just clicked translate to English."
Yeah.
But I miss out on the water cooler talk, because I don't speak French yet.
Yeah, and you talked about some of the cultural differences between the different countries, or early on in our conversation, you talked about the low context versus high context scenarios. And I don't know if the translation gets that stuff, or just the same way that comedy doesn't really work across languages, right? It kind of has to be localized to a language or to a culture.
Yeah. I think comedians, on a slightly different note, I think comedians right now are going through a very rough time as a profession.
How so? Yeah.
Because first and foremost, with what is going on in the level of sensitivity, some of them may have their whole entire kind of library of material just being not appropriate anymore, And even when we're going into such a sensitive, charged space, that it's very, very hard to laugh at anything right now without having a certain group take offense to it. So that's why I say I do feel for some of the comedians that have been canceled.
I have a video I've been working on for a bit that I don't know if I'll ever get done with the way my pace of work has been going with this podcast and everything. But I've been trying this out with a few different comedians, of asking ChatGPT or other large language models to write in the style of a certain comedian. And it does surprisingly well at that kind of thing. So that is the...
There you go.
Yeah, I thought maybe this is where you're going with. I think they have a lot of trouble in different ways, but also, hey, it's a great thing, right? You could, if you're a well-known comedian, or if you just like the style of someone else, you can get a bunch of material. It's like a ghostwriter, And you still got to do the presentation of the material.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've been going a little bit long and everything, so I really appreciate you sticking around with me and spending this time with me. It's been great talking to you, Rhoda.
I had a lot of fun, and I hope that you get a good rest at the end of a very long day for you. Right. And thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for spending your weekend with me, too. All right.
Keep in touch.
You too. Thanks a ton for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time, friends.